Welcome to using the ADView2 Vital Monitor training session. The title page indicates Part 1. This is because there are two parts to this training. Part 1 is this online session. The second part of the training is you're having at least one opportunity to use and familiarize yourself with the monitor hands-on prior to using it in the field. One note before we move on. This Vitals monitor was not provided by MCFRS. It was purchased with roughly $2,200 of our own UMCVFD Corporation funds. Therefore, we are responsible for the care, replacing supplies, and any out-of-warranty repairs that may eventually be required. In other words, it took selling a lot of pork sandwiches and Santa breakfasts to pay for it. So please handle it with care. We will cover the following topics in this session. Why a Vitals monitor? We already have everything we need. Why learn something new? It's just a tool to make our job easier if we choose to use it. Why the ADView2? There are many models to choose from across a broad variety of price, quality, and functionality. We will cover the controls and the various display settings and icons and what they mean. From there, we will go into how to use the unit, from powering it on and off to using it to take and record your patient's vital signs. We will cover them in the same order as they should be taken on a patient. We will begin setting up for blood pressure first. While the cuff inflates and the unit begins sensing, we can apply the pulse oximeter to the patient's finger. While the unit begins calculating pulse ox, we can take the patient's temperature. By the time their temperature displays, the ADView2 will have had time to calculate the patient's blood pressure, oxygen saturation, and heart rate. Lastly, we will cover how to record all that information into the ADView2's memory so that you can retrieve it later for your report. So why exactly did we decide to purchase a vital signs monitor? After all, we already have everything we need in the ambulance. We have a separate blood pressure cuff, a stethoscope, a separate pulse ox unit, and thermometer. You'll hold the blood pressure gauge with one hand, positioning your other hand so that you can see your watch's second hand for a pulse. You'll inflate the cuff with another hand. Now with one more hand, you hold your stethoscope just against the patient's artery, while with your hand that's not holding the cuff, you begin to deflate it slowly. While the cuff deflates, unzipper the pulse oximeter pouch and apply the sensor to the patient's finger. Finally, find and apply one of the disposable plastic covers to the thermometer and then gently run it across the patient's forehead, skip over the ear, and then press it gently against their head behind their ear. Release the button and hopefully you'll have a temperature reading. You've also brought along a notepad so that with your two remaining free hands, you can legibly record the information to later include in your report. And here's how this all comes together on the way to the hospital.
So what do they need us for?
There are many Vitals monitors to choose from, so why the ADView2 from American Diagnostics? Portability. We need a device that is all-inclusive, compact, and light. The ADView2 can be easily carried to the patient's side as well as along with the patient back into the ambulance. We need a device that is designed and built for the long haul, able to withstand being used often every day. One of the challenges we face in a moving ambulance is being able to write down the patient's vitals for later reporting. The ADView2 offers 99 slots of built-in memory to record this information just by pushing a button. In addition to automatic mode, you still have the capability to auscultate blood pressure manually should you decide to do so. Replacement or disposable cuffs and probe covers are standard and very available. The enclosed battery holds a substantial charge and is easily replaceable. We purchased a replacement battery along with the unit. The software that runs the ADView2 is easily upgradable by attaching it to a computer via USB cable. And lastly, the unit is modular and expandable. The pulse ox and temperature modules are field replaceable. When a touchless temperature probe becomes available, it can be added in the field without having to send the unit back to the manufacturer. It also has the capability of communicating patient information with outside systems, and should we decide to do so in the future, we can also add a printer. Next, we will briefly go over the ADView2 display and controls. The display area is view only and not touch sensitive. We begin with the top row of the display. Just above the date and time, outlined in yellow, you will see a long number. In a hospital setting, this would show the patient identification number of an admitted patient. However, since we are not in a hospital setting, this will not be used. The outlined area just below that denotes the date and time. Usually, such as while you're taking vitals, this will represent the current date and time. If you are reviewing previously taken and stored vitals, this will display the date and time that the information was stored to memory. The large number to the right of the date and time displays the next available memory slot available to store the currently displayed vital signs. We will cover how to store a patient's vital signs to memory, how to retrieve them for your report, and how to clear memory later in the session. The last item on the upper row indicates battery charge. A full charge is represented by 3 horizontal bars. As the battery charge depletes, the number of bars will decrease. When the display reaches 1 bar, it should be connected to an AC outlet to recharge. Let's proceed to the middle row. The first 2 large numbers displayed are the systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Heart rate is shown to the right of the diastolic blood pressure in beats per minute. This portion of the display denotes blood pressure averaging. This is not covered in this session, but the documentation on how to use the ADView2 in averaging mode is available online on our UMCVFD Google Drive. The ADView2 can be adjusted to inflate the cuff to 2 different pressure ranges depending upon the age of your patient. The adult pediatric mode icon displays the currently selected blood pressure operating mode. Adult mode is currently shown. Mode selection will be covered in more detail later in the session. Let's proceed to the bottom row. The bottom row of the display shows the patient's oxygen saturation in percent. Next, we see the patient's temperature displayed in degrees Fahrenheit. The unit is also capable of displaying temperature in Celsius. The icons just to the right of temperature show us the current temperature settings mode. In most cases, the mode will appear as you see it here, with the bunny denoting quick mode, and with the small arrow pointing to the person's head denoting oral mode. There are 2 other modes, cold and direct, which will be covered later in this session. That concludes the display overview. We will now address the interactive controls across the bottom of the ADView2. There are 4 pressure-sensitive buttons and a selection control knob at the bottom of the unit. The buttons have single short press functions, and 2 of the buttons, the memory and mode buttons, have long press functions as well. The selection control knob has a turn selection function and a press function. The first button with the notepad icon is the memory add button. To the right of the memory button is the toggle mode. This button is used to change between adult and pediatric mode. Just to the right of the toggle mode button is the selection control knob. This knob has both turn and press functions. Turn to select between different options, press in to select or set an option. The blood pressure start-stop The blue button to the right of the selection control knob is used to inflate and deflate the blood pressure cuff. And lastly, the home button will bring the unit back from whatever function it is in to being ready for the next measurement. This concludes the display and controls overview. Next, we will move into actually using the ADView2 to take patient vitals. The ADView2 power button is on the upper left side of the unit. To turn the unit on, press and release the power button. The entire display, control buttons, and selection knob will light temporarily and then go off. It can take up to 20 seconds for the power on process to complete. When you hear the beep and the display reappears, the unit is ready to take vital signs. The unit is on or in sleep or standby mode whenever the blue ring around the selection control knob is lit. Remaining battery life is indicated by the number of bars showing in the battery charge icon. At a full charge, all 3 of the bars will be illuminated. A full charge should enable you to take up to 200 separate vital sign readings. When the remaining battery charge is down to a single bar, between 11 to 40% of battery power remains. At this point, the unit should be plugged into a 110-volt outlet for recharging as soon as possible. To turn the unit off, press and hold the power button until you hear a beep. The entire display will illuminate temporarily and then go dark. The unit is now off. It is not necessary to turn the unit off, as it will self-power off automatically after 1 hour of inactivity. The first step to taking blood pressure is to verify that the unit is set to the correct patient mode. For pediatric patients, the unit should be in pediatric mode, indicated by the pediatric icon. Adult or pediatric mode is indicated by the person icon. It should be defaulted to adult mode at shift start. Does it make a difference? Yes, the unit is set to inflate the blood pressure cuff to a lower range for pediatric patients and a slightly higher range for adults. This brief video demonstrates how to switch between blood pressure modes. To change mode, press and hold the toggle mode button for about 4 seconds or until the selection control knob begins to flash. Turn the selection control knob to select the appropriate mode. Press and release the toggle mode select button when the appropriate mode is displayed. If the blood pressure cuff is not yet connected to the unit, connect it as shown in this video. To connect, gently pull back on the connector outer ring, pressing it onto the matching fitting on the left side of the unit. Release the ring and you will hear a distinct click when it is properly secured. To disconnect, gently pull back on the outer ring while pulling the connector away from the unit. The ADView2 enables you to take a patient's blood pressure automatically, that is, without requiring the provider to use a stethoscope. It also provides a manual function where it inflates the cuff to a desired pressure prior to deflating but does not calculate a pressure. This brief video demonstrates taking a blood pressure with the ADView2.
Your device will default to single measurement mode each time it's powered up. You can also revert to single measurement mode by pressing the Home button. Before starting, ensure any previous values are cleared from the display. Press the Memory button to save an earlier reading that's still on screen. Press the Home button to clear an older reading without saving it. When ready, place the cuff around the arm. The cuff index line should fall within the printed range markers. If not, select a larger or smaller cuff to ensure an accurate reading. Make sure the arm is relaxed and supported, and ask the patient to stay still and quiet. With the cuff in place, press the Stop/Start button. The cuff will begin inflating. When it reaches an appropriate pressure, it begins to deflate. The reading should appear in about 30 seconds. A long beep will indicate measurement is complete.
We will now move to the pulse oximeter function of the ADView2. The pulse ox, or oxygen saturation percent, will appear in the lower left of the display. The sensor will also calculate the patient's heart rate, which will display on the right side of the middle row, in beats per minute.
If the pulse oximeter cable is not connected to the unit, connect it by matching the D-shell connector receptacle on the left side of the ADView2. You will notice that the cable connector is wider at the top and tapers down at the bottom. Once connected, secure the cable in place by pressing the wire clasp over the connector. This brief video will demonstrate taking the patient's oxygen saturation.
After your SpO2 module has been properly installed, begin by inserting either the index, middle or ring finger of your patient into the SpO2 sensor until the end of the finger reaches the finger stop. Do not use the thumb. The fingernail should face the side with the red light. Make sure that long fingernails do not interfere with proper finger position. After a few seconds, an SpO2 reading is displayed on your CT40 display screen. Remove the finger from the SpO2 sensor to display the last measurement. To start a new measurement, reapply the SpO2 sensor to the patient's finger and follow the same instructions as before. If you do not remove the sensor from the patient's finger, the SpO2 readings will stop automatically after 10 minutes of continuous measurement. The last measurement will be displayed on the screen. If the signal quality from the sensor drops below 90%, no reading will be displayed in the SpO2 section and the percent symbol will begin flashing. You must check the connection to the device and ensure proper sensor placement to the patient's finger.
In this session, we will cover the temperature functions of the ADView2. The temperature-related icons and values are on the right of the bottom row. The ADView2 temperature probe is capable of very accurate temperature readings at different sites and in different environments. In almost all situations, you will take the patient's temperature orally in what the ADView2 displays as quick predictive mode. The probe is computer controlled to anticipate a typical environment and to obtain a ready, quick, usually within 15 seconds, temperature. Quick mode is indicated with the rabbit or bunny and with the arrow pointed to the patient's head or oral. We will discuss other modes such as cold and direct modes later in this session. When the uncovered probe is holstered, the unit is in standby mode. The probe should always be uncovered when in the holster. Acquire a probe cover. The probe must click into the cover. Now that the probe cover is in place, the unit is ready to calculate temperature as indicated by the spinning icon. Insert the covered probe gently into the patient's oral sublingual pocket, also known as under their tongue. The temperature probe has a push button. To discard a used probe, position the probe over a trash receptacle and push the button. The probe cover will eject from the probe. Always remember to discard the probe cover prior to returning the temperature probe into the holder. Failing to do this can cause damage to the temperature probe.
Remove the temperature probe, put on a probe cover, and place it in the patient's sublingual pocket. Each measurement will display when complete. All should be ready within about 30 seconds.
Let's discuss cold mode. If you have a patient who will be predictably having a lower temperature, for example, a hypothermic patient in the field, the unit will anticipate and obtain a quicker, more accurate reading by placing the temperature probe into cold mode. Cold mode is indicated by the snowflake next to the person icon. To switch the ADView2 into cold mode, depress both buttons simultaneously. The icon will change from quick mode to cold mode. To return to quick mode, repeat the action. In this session, we will be discussing how to use the memory functions of the ADView2, paying particular attention to the memory icons in the middle of the top row of the display. When the notepad flashes, you are in memory mode. When the trash can flashes, you are about to delete an item from memory. The numerical display indicates which of the 99 available memory slots you are working in. In the video, note the 10 at the top row. This indicates that there are 9 prior patient vitals stored in memory slots 1 through 9. The next available memory slot is 10. To store a patient's vitals to memory, press the memory button twice in succession. The screen will flash as the ADView2 stores all information on the screen into memory slot 10 along with the current date and time. Once slot 10 is taken, the screen will clear and you will be working in memory slot 11. To retrieve the patient's prior vitals, first press the memory button and hold it in until the notepad begins flashing. Turn the selection control knob counterclockwise to scroll through prior patient vitals. The date and time displays exactly when that set of vitals was saved to memory. To clear prior vital sign entries from the ADView2 memory, press and hold the memory button for about 3 seconds until the memory slot indicator begins to flash. You are now in memory mode. While in memory mode, press and hold the selection control knob until the trash icon appears. Press and release the knob again to confirm that you want to delete this entry. To clear remaining entries, scroll through the memory slots and repeat the process. It is helpful and courteous to your fellow responders to clear all prior stored vital signs after your report is complete and to make sure all memory slots are clear at the end of your shift. So now let's put this all together in one smooth flow.
Ensure any previous values are cleared from the display. Press the memory button to save an earlier reading that's still on screen. Press the home button to clear an earlier reading without saving it. Confirm the unit is set to adult mode or pediatric mode, depending on the patient. To change this setting, press and hold the mode toggle button, then use the selection knob to choose the correct mode. Begin the measurements by properly applying the cuff to the patient's arm. With the cuff in place, press the Stop-Start button. Place the SpO2 sensor on the hand opposite the blood pressure cuff. Next, remove the temperature probe, put on a probe cover, and place it in the patient's sublingual pocket. Each measurement will display when complete. All should be ready within about 30 seconds. Measurements can be taken in any order, but this sequence is optimized so the longest, blood pressure, is started first.
Let's review. In this session, we have reviewed the ADView2 Vital Signs Monitor. We've discussed why we purchased one and why we selected the ADView2 from American Diagnostics. We reviewed the entire display and the controls. We discussed how to turn it on and off and how to use the ADView2 to take patients' blood pressure, pulse ox, and temperature. Finally, we covered how to store vitals, record vitals, and clear the memory pages. Hopefully you found this information valuable and feel confident to begin using the ADView2 yourself on your next shift. If you have any questions or constructive feedback, please feel free to contact me by any of the methods shown. Thank you.